So you guys are looking to go free to play with this one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we decided that we wanted it to be a really accessible Total War. So we focused really the first 4 or 5 tiers on being really accessible and getting into. So tier 1, you have 1 ability, and you can choose between 2 different types of unit. And then at tier 3, you have 3 different types of unit and 2 abilities. And then tier 5, you have all 3 abilities and 5 different unit types to choose from for each faction. So the kind of more hardcore Total War players who want that multiplayer game will breeze through the first couple of tiers and end up kind of sitting at this 7, 8 tier range where it's a really complex Total War game that's really tough and really competitive. But if you're not quite comfortable with that, and if you just want to be introduced to Total War, or maybe just play a more casual Total War experience, you can sit at tier 3, tier 4 and play that. We don't want to force you to play something that's harder than you want. And that's kind of our way of implementing a difficulty curve, is letting people choose how they want to play. And that's something that World of Tanks really, and kind of Wargaming taught us about. And now we've implemented it, and the feedback we get is great. We can see where people choose to sit and how they feel about that.
Passage of Augustus introduces an entirely new kind of map gameplay to Total War Arena, playing almost like a King of the Hill mode. Both teams spawn behind their bases and must initially rush to gain control of it. These bases are linked by a narrow pass that will be heavily fought over. As both teams will try to use this shortcut, using and countering ranged and heavy infantry units will be vital to ensuring control.
With Wargaming, you were saying that you skew more towards an older audience. What are you trying to aim for with Total War Arena in that case? I mean, it's going to be free to play, it's going to open it up a lot more. Who are you already anticipating is going to come to this game?
Good question. So we spend quite a bit of time and money researching, the different audience types out there. And if you do that job properly, you identify the different tribes and the different groups, and then you can start to think about which of your games, fits with, which group best, and indeed which new games that you should be developing to meet the needs of these groups. So we've got interesting names for our consumer segments. We've got the young gunner, we've got the middle-aged militarian, we've got the senior historian, and the safe and studious.
Very wordsmithy.
Well, it's because I came up with them, and I swallowed a dictionary when I was about 5. With Total War Arena, the key segments really are the senior historian. You can probably work out what that person's like, and the safe and studious. Safe and studious is the sort of guy you would find over in the far hall, more comfortable in a traditional tabletop-based wargaming environment. They've got a PC, but they're a little bit cautious about PC gaming. They haven't sort of really developed the habit and aren't confident in that space. But with a game that kind of looks a bit like and plays a bit like a tabletop game, albeit a much quicker and more immersive graphically, that will appeal to them. And so when Josh talks about making the game accessible early doors, and the first 3, 4 tiers being effectively tutorial tiers, learning tiers, we think we can get that segment as well. So the senior historian and the safe and studious would be the key segments, really.
We find that because traditional Total War games, a battle could take 25, 30 minutes. If you've got mods, it can take up to an hour. But with Total War Arena, there's a 15-minute cap, and we tend to find that most of them take 7, 8 minutes. So it's a really good slot for people who either they're quite young and they just want to play, like the kind of the young gunner guys you're talking about. They just want a quick match, they want to play something quick, and they want to get that thrill of it. But also the people who don't have much time to game, and they don't want to be drawn out into a really long campaign, which is what Total War is known for. So focusing on the shorter battle means that people who love Total War but just don't have the time anymore to commit to it can come to Total War Arena and still play those battles.
Yeah, and ironically, it's a bit like the difference between, say, a film and a television show. A lot of people look at a film and go, 2 hours, I'm not sure. But an hour long, it's like they'll commit. But then because it's so good, they'll watch a second and the third one and end up spending more time in there anyway. So yeah, it's not trickery. It's just about the game is so much fun. It's so sticky. Even though it lasts 7, 8 minutes, you ended up playing 4 or 5 of them in a row, and your overall time commitment to the game is actually slightly longer. So it just works nicely.
So with Total War originally, you got more large-scale battles, but it was more focused on single player, so the matches would last longer, obviously. So how much of your design philosophy had to change in order to fit in with the whole 15-minute cap thing?
It was pretty tough for the first couple of years. Like we were debating with ourselves, like, are we trying to emulate a Total War battle, a traditional one, or are we trying to do something different? And eventually kind of what we settled on was we wanted to do something different. A lot of the guys who did the Shogun 2 multiplayer were the ones who came onto Total War Arena, and they were the ones who kind of innovated on it and were like, this was really cool, but we don't just want to do the same thing, but more, because that's not what's great in this industry. What's great about this industry is you can innovate and you can make new games and put them out there and see how they fare. And we found that our multiplayer experience is really unique. Like, you have your units, but when they die, you're out the battle. That doesn't mean you're not playing. You just switch another commander and jump into another battle. It's really cool, and it's something that we learned a lot from you guys as well, but we put our own kind of Total War twist on it, and I think it works really well.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, that's great to hear. You guys are really enthusiastic about everything. This game sounds like a lot of fun. You got, it seems like you've got like the nice sweet spot going on there, trying to get those older and younger gamers, and you've got it nice and short. So when can we expect the game?
It's a good question. As soon as, but we just can't commit. There's just too much to do right now.
Every time we think about it, we think about another feature or another thing that we want to add in, but we wouldn't just want to add that into a live game. We want it to test it, so we stay in beta, and we're just like, we want to add more content, you know?
And that's PC only so far? Yep, so no Mac yet or anything like that? Nothing to announce?
Typically in the industry, you sort of lead on one format, and then you make that successful, and then you're then allowed to sort of think about, expanding onto other formats. So it's relatively early days in the sort of Total War Arena journey.